Here we have an editor in his natural habitat. He has just about finished his project, looking proud and pleased. There is one client stepped, just add some background music.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to talk about Gambo, a cryptid that is highly unusual with its storytelling. It is very suspicious how it has been told. Evidence that it has is highly unusual, and so we're going to discuss about what is the possible creatures that it may be identified with and the creatures that are definitely not identified with go along with that. Yeah, so let's go. The body of Gambo was reportedly found in Gambia. That was reportedly found by 15-year-old Odom Burdum and his family while they were vacationing in Gambia, which Gambia is surrounded by the country of Senegal, which is at the west coast of Africa, if you wanted to know that. Back to the topic, the body was found in the morning of June 12th, 1983, so not that far back, just a few decades ago, and apparently Owen was a wildlife enthusiast. How convenient. Owen nor his family did not have the family camera on them whatsoever, which just sounds already odd in itself, so Owen took it on himself to do some sketches and measurements of the creature the body was on the ground. And now I'm going to let you guys hear the story that I read online about Owen. So Owen and his family had encountered this creature. His brother, I think his sister and father in the story, had encountered two African people who were trying to chop out the head of Gambo, which is already weird in itself in my opinion. And why you think they're trying to cut off its head? Because they wanted to cut off its head so they can sell it to some tourist or some high exorbitant price. That already sounds weird in itself for me in the story. This enormous creature was beached already and is already dead when they found it. The site where the body was found was in Bungalow Beach in Gambia, and there's only one river in the whole country of Gambia, folks. The river named after itself, the Gambian River. Then they started measuring the animal by drawing a line beside the creature to see how long it was, and I think they brought a tape measuring, if I was correct in the story what I read about. They did brought a tape measuring in the equation of this. They started measuring the body, they measured the head and the tail individually. Owen had started counting the teeth of the creature, and it had 8 teeth in total, and the teeth looked like a barracuda. They were whiter and thicker, and I believe maybe sharper in the story. And they were uniform in shape and size. I don't know what that even means in itself already now. And the jaw was tightly closed in his story of the creature when he was examining it. The jaw was longer than a dolphin's. It had a snout at the end of the beak. It had no blowhole. It appeared to have some damage already to it because it was missing a flipper, and another flipper was already torn a little bit, which showed some guts. So the head was domed, but not too much of a dome. It had a beak and no ears that was distinguishable from its head whatsoever, and apparently the body of the creature on the top of it was brown. The bottom was a lighter shade, I think was brown or white, which is actually a very accurate description of many apex predators in the ocean. They have a darker top of the body and a lighter underbelly to camouflage themselves. So when prey looked above, they didn't see the predator, they only saw the ocean waves and the lighting, which makes sense. He talks about how awful the smell was, and then he reported he's seen dolphins in a sort of decay state like that 5 days or so. So he estimates that's how long this body has been dead for, which I'm kind of interested how a 15-year-old would know that, but hey, I'm not a 15-year-old. He talks about how smooth the skin is. There is a part of the body where the skin is missing, he mentions, and we already talked about how there was already torn flippers at the hind quarters of the creature where it's already been torn and ripped off, presumably by predators or some sort of scavengers. I don't know why they wouldn't consume the whole body. And whatever male organs there were visibly before were well damaged already and decayed. And I think he may have mentioned some memory glands, but they were not visible apparently. The paddles of the creature were broad and strong, and round and solid as well, shaped, and they're water dynamic. That's what you need when you need to be an apex predator of the oceans to hunt and fish or aquatic animals. There are no toes, no claws, none of that. Also, you see that in the pictures that I'll show you guys clarifies that there are no toes and claws in those pictures either. He talks about how bloated the body is from being decayed already. So now we get to the tail, the more odd part of the story. The tail is apparently broad and stream shaped and ready for swimming. So some animals we're gonna check out will not have that characteristic already. So that's one thing. So Owen started drawing some sketches and stuff for the creature, and then later on he tried bargaining with the locals to get the head. They didn't want to sell him the head for whatever reason. They sold it to some exorbitant tourist or something. I don't know what the price was for some sort of unidentified sea creature head. And then Owen started to talk around with the locals and see what is the name of the creature. Kutambele is apparently the local name of dolphin. That's what they call it. Body was burnt and buried by the locals. I know the locals thought it was just another dolphin that just got beached and washed up on the beach. That was one of Owen's investigations, drawing a conclusion on that part. That is all the details I'm going to tell you guys about the story of this creature. And as you can see, this is already a suspicious story. Why did he do all these specific measurements? They could have just told him, hey, just get the camera and take a picture of the damn thing. They're taking a vacation. I highly doubt they can't afford a camera. This is the 1980s, folks. They had well access to cameras. They could get nice pictures of it. They seem to be reasonably priced back then. I don't see why not a family that's vacationing would not want to have a camera. It just always seems weird. A tape measure instead of a camera. I don't know. You have to ask them, not me. I'm not the one who's like recalling this story. I think there was a 2006 expedition in Gambia to look for Gambo's remains. You won't believe where they came from. A highly likely location they think that it came from. One of the suspected sites of, well, Gambo's body is in a nightclub, and the owner of the nightclub was apparently the brother of the president of Gambia, which is already weird in itself and a bit funny, which he allowed them to go and dig around in his nightclub. I don't know how they persuade him that, and all attempts to look for Gambo's body in this area and other locations all turned up nothing because, well, we don't know what happened to Gambo's body. Could it have been in the construction of this nightclub? They could have just thrown the body or the bones and got destroyed. They could have, or could have not existed. That could also happen. And again, all attempts to look for Gambo's body is very hard. Also, Carl Sugar got involved in this case. He started interviewing everybody who was involved in the story, the people who chopped Gambo's head off, the people who were there. He even interviewed Burnham. So Burnham started talking to Carl Sugar about, well, Gambo's body and his remains, mentioning that it hasn't decayed that much, recently beached, and so on. And the length of the creature was apparently 15 feet long, so pretty big creature, not a dolphin-sized creature whatsoever. So that's rolled out. Then came the measurements of Gambo's head, which was 4.5 feet in length, so quite big indeed. The beak was measured in 2.5 feet, 1.5 feet long, and these were just the front ones, folks. Remember, the rear ones I mentioned earlier were already destroyed and a little bit damaged. The tail was measured around 5 feet in length, is pointed in tip, so we know that, and it had no sort of like broadside fin on its back. And the only information, folks, was coming from this Burnham guy. It was very hard to get any other information out of anyone else. So then Carl Sugar started troubleshooting it. If you don't know what troubleshooting is, it just means, folks, a technical term in, well, computer programming or in like electrical work. It just means finding out the problem and try fixing it. So roll out all the other scenarios that it could be, figure out what is the problem and fix it. He troubleshooted. He ruled out it's no known cetacean, no crocodile, lack of like mammal features like hair or some sort of like flippers or some like hand-like flippers. It's not a cetacean whatsoever they can recognize. That's one thing about it. And it's not a fish. It's not any selenians or reptiles whatsoever. They gave it an interesting joke that it could have been a highly evolved platypus that could have just started swimming in the oceans out there. If that's the case, then why Australia? Why is that one most weirdest thing you could give us is the platypus, that it could evolve into an ocean dweller? Why Australia? That's the one thing they joked about. That's about the thing. And here's some weird information. They thought it could have been a mosasaur. It could have been a coelacanth. Folks, if it was a fish, it would have been lying on its side, not on its belly, because fishes are very kind of bladed and streamlined on the head and belly. So they would have been on their side. If it was a land dweller, like a mosasaur or some sort of mammal, yes, or maybe a shark, yeah, sure, it could have been on its belly, but it wasn't. So what could have been? Well, it's very in its time. It's not an accurate description of any current creature that we know of from the past very well, like a mosasaur, pliosaur, or some sort of prehistoric mammalian creature we don't know of. Fossil record is scarce, but it's not that scarce. We do know what they are. Some plesiosaurs had like a tail fluke or some sort of hind flipper fluke on the back of them, so we know that. I don't think mosasaurs had that. And again, I'm not very well depth in my mosasaur knowledge. It's very weird how it had a like a nasal snout, like on the front at the beak, not on the back where it could have a blowhole, so we could cross that out. It's not a shepherd's beak dolphin. As you can see in the image that I'm going to show you guys about a shepherd's beak dolphin, they are rare, they're hard, and they're not very well understood nor studied, but we do know some information about them already. They live somewhere in the South Atlantic or Indian Ocean, somewhere around Antarctic continental ocean waters. Why would this creature that would be adapted for that kind of lifestyle swim in warm coastal waters of Africa? I don't think it would even survive. I think it would have a hard time. Body temperature would drastically be higher, and then the water is more hotter and it can't cool off faster. So we can rule that off. It doesn't have a hind like fluke flipper behind on its back, which we can rule out. Remember, as mentioned, it has smooth skin. What else can we know about that? Well, most fish have smooth skin, while dolphins and whales have smooth skin, depending on how dangerous is their food or how hard is it. But even then, it doesn't look like a mammalian creature. Again, remember, its teeth were mentioned to be a barracuda's and more broader than a barracuda's. Probably was more of a ferocious eater. And some cryptozoologists think it's a crocodiliomorph. Remember what I mentioned about that crocodile filter feeder in my Trunko video? Yeah, it ain't that. It's definitely not some sort of crocodilian-like creature that has escaped our knowledge for hundreds of millions of years or maybe 50 million years. Again, I'm not very well versed in my crocodiles, folks. My apologies. I will catch up onto that if you want me to. But it is definitely not that, because if it was, we would be talking about sea crocodiles that are in the oceans, that are ferocious predators, that have flippers, and that are very weird to their cousins, which are land dwellers in some ways, and they also spend their time in the water. We would have been having movies, TV shows, we would have cartoon characters about that. We do not, okay? It is not that well known. It is a niche thing in the paleontological community sciences. So we know it is not a crocodiliomorph whatsoever. You can cross that off. Conclusion, folks, what could it be? Well, it could be a wild hoax. Remember how the locals have mentioned it could have been just an ordinary dolphin to them? Yeah, it could have been an ordinary dolphin that for some weird reason missed its back fluke, which could be the case. But then again, if that was the case, you would have mentioned the back being torn off, or it would have had a back fluke. We don't think it's a real story. I don't think it's a real story, because I think it's just a 15-year-old kid who just wanted 15 minutes of spotlight onto him so he could be famous in some weird way and just have a more interesting summer break. Or yeah, it was the summer. I don't understand anything that needs to be like discussed further on. We already discussed it's not any of the sea creatures that I already mentioned. It's not hard to understand that why we haven't found any body remains, which means A, it's made up, or B, it's just an interesting story. I could see Gambo being a very cool, interesting kids character in some sort of like movie or show, or some sort of like small little sketch, which could get kids interested and they could have fun. I think about it, a lot of these crypto creatures that are very unknown or just niche and very odd in themselves and not very threatening, they could all fit in their own little show or little segment. I like to see that now. I know the Saturday show came out years ago. That used to be interesting in the cryptozoology. And that was getting a lot of people at the time into cryptozoology because, hey, cryptids were getting up and more eyewitness accounts. We had cell phones back then. I like to see a reboot of the Saturdays, actually. Now I think about a very dedicated one. Or like something similar to the Saturdays about like sea creatures or something. Something like that, you know. Sorry about the little tangent, folks. So, what do we think about this? Well, this is a weird thing as it is. Even Dare Nation himself, the guy I think you would see if you watch a show about dinosaurs in the Apple Plus program, Historic Planet, and he like disputed the evidence of Gambo and said how lack of evidence there is and how hard is it for people to find a creature or even like proving it. But he's not discrediting it, the person. It's just highly unlikely. He's not like downright saying, no, this is just shit. No, he's just like, you know, it's just, it's hard to prove. It's highly speculative and best a neat story. Also, where is this person who have purchased or bought Gambo head, and why have they not, you know, like shared evidence, show proof, saying, hey, this is the real deal, this is Gambo's head? When they bought it, did they like lost it back home, or they like left it in their storage unit, or they sold it to someone else as like some sort of neat little decoration for their home, or they get stolen by somebody else? We don't know. No one's never mentioned about Gambo's head either. It's highly unlikely that Gambo is a real life, some sort of like marine reptile like creature that's from the past, somehow survived to modern day, and somehow has escaped our vigilance, observation, and our studies. There's one thing about our science community is very well known for. Let's study the shit out of that thing. Make the wrong observations by studying it in a lab or in a zoo and making the imprecise measurements and studying it in the wildlife, see its maximum capacity and also its maximum range abilities. That's usually how I hear about this when they study about other animals that do exist. This is one hell of an interesting story. I think Gambo would be a neat kids show character. I don't know what else to do. I have nothing else to contribute to this story, folks. I don't know. Enjoy this. I know I have in some way. Later. Oh, wait, folks. I got a phone call. Yellow. Giga Chat versus pill guy who says shits about women are not sentient. Okay, yeah, sure. I like to place a bet. Wait, Giga Chat has a final form? Is this prank? Oh, it's you, Graf. Yeah, Graf. Hey, Graf. Know where the turtle who knows the secrets of the universes. Yeah, I want to be in his commercial for the cereals. I think it was Tea Turtles, or was it Vitamin Chews? I don't know. Is he still? No, he ain't. Damn, I want to be in the commercial, man. Oh well. But later, man, I like to place my bets on Giga Chad Final Form being up the millionth red pill guy. I don't know. Well, oh shit, am I still recording this? Fuck!